All right, guys. The draft is in the books. We finally made it. Week one is finally here. We have real life NFL football tonight. But here's what you guys have been waiting for, your week one matchup preview. So, this is for you newbies out there where I go through everybody's matchup. I give you some key players in these matchups, and I tell you who's going to win and why. So, our first matchup, we have the Patriarch versus Worthy of Our Trust, Tony Sr. versus Trey, and the Battle of the Chiefs fans. Interestingly enough, I don't believe any Chiefs are starting on either side for these guys. Do the Chiefs fans know something that we don't? That maybe the Chiefs aren't going to be that good this year? I don't know. We're going to find out in a few short hours. But speaking of that game, Senior well represented in this game with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, in his last four starts against Kansas City, has at least one rushing touchdown or 50 yards rushing on the ground or both. Very high floor quarterback play this week, and I think he's going to need to do some running again. Trey is starting the Baltimore D, which is the best defense in football, but at the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know how that's going to play out. Other guys to watch, A.J. Brown against a very overrated Packers secondary. I think A.J. Brown could have a field day. James Cook, though. So I'm going to give you a bold prediction. James Cook finishes this week inside the top 5 at running back. He's going to absolutely torch the Cardinals. They're going to have no answer for him. James Cook, huge game. On Trey's team, I think it's a tough draw with Kyle Pitts and Drake London both facing a tough Steelers defense. I do think Stroud and Nico Collins have big games. But that being said, got to give the dub here to the Patriarch. Tony Sr. marches to a week one victory over Trey. We have the wise man versus baby back Gibbs. So Joe versus Jared. And I gotta say, I think Jared's a little underprojected here. He's got Tua, who always gets off to a smoking hot start. Somehow Yahoo has Tyreek Hill projected at like 13.5, Jalen Waddle at 9.5, but Tua's only going to get 15. That doesn't make a lot of sense, guys. The Jags don't have a great defense. I think Tua has a big game. Puka Nacua is going to eat against the Detroit Hello Kitties defense. Saquon Barkley probably going to do well against the Packers. Like I said, Packers not the greatest defense in the world. They're about league average, but certainly no match for a healthy Saquon Barkley. I look over on Joe's side of things. Before I get to Joe's side of things, it's got to make Jared a little nervous that Marvin Harrison Jr. is behind Dortch on a porch on the depth chart. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't ready to be that alpha dog just yet. Who knows? We shall see. On Joe's side of things, we're hearing Rachaad White is in a full-on committee. I'd be absolutely panicked if I were Joe. Terrible situation. And, Joe, I was wondering why you drafted Evan Ingram when you could have just traded for Sam Laporta. But, you went with Evan Ingram, I guess. So, do what you got to do. Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs out of both feast. I think that's going to be the shootout of the week. The Rams and the Lions, absolute shootout in that game. If you have pieces on either side of that, you're going to be happy. Bold prediction time. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle is a top 6 wide receiver this week. He's going to have a big game. I think he gets open deep for a bomb touchdown against the Jags. But is it enough to give Jared the win? No. And the reason it's not is because Joe has the Cincinnati defense playing Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots. That's gross. So Joe's defense, Joe always plays good defense. He's going to get the W week one. Now, we got big ass TDs and no you lock it up. Tony versus Kevin. Interesting matchup here. Kev's team not as bad as I would have thought after the draft. Tony's got pretty big advantage at running back with Bijan, Achane, and Javonte versus Najee, Mixon, and Kamara. I look at Jordan Love again. I think the Eagles and Packers going to be a shootout on Friday night. Lots of points in that game. Anthony Richardson, I just have no idea. Not going to pretend to know what he's going to do. Can't imagine they ask him to throw a ton. He's going to do probably most of his damage on the ground. You just don't know because the guy's total wild card, which is a lot like a lot of Tony's team. Rashee Rice, Cooper Kupp, Chris Olave, Achane. These guys are all kind of wild cards. We really don't know. It is kind of bold of Tony to be starting the Seattle defense against his own running back, which basically, for those of you that are new, if Javonte Williams scores a touchdown, Tony gets 0 points. So kind of a weird, you typically don't want to play guys against your own defense. That being said, I'm looking at this. I'm going to go bold prediction. I think Cooper Kupp goes off this week and finishes as the wide receiver 1 overall on the week. I'm giving him $150 and 2 TDs against the Lions in the Stafford revenge game. En route to Tony eking out the dub, barely beating Kevin in what's going to be a tight matchup. Very tight matchup. We got myself, the Tribal Chief, versus Main Event Jay in Tribal Combat in the matchup of the week. Now, there's not much to be said here. I am a massive favorite. Absolutely massive. I should just steamroll Jason in this battle. I mean, for God's sake, Jason's starting 2 Raiders. The Raiders are going to be one of the worst teams in football. Sorry, Paul, but it is what it is. The Raiders suck. They're terrible. Devontae Adams is washed. And don't love the Raiders. So, I guess bold prediction-wise, I'm going to say Jayden Reed has a big game in Brazil on Friday. I'm going to give him about 90 yards and a score. Big game for Jayden Reed. Obviously, I'm going to win. Really not much else to discuss on that particular matchup. Jason's a heavy underdog, and he's going to wear it this week. He's just going to have to take it on the chin. Now I look at the final matchup, which, and I can't help but notice Steve's team name, Gorlock the Destroyer, which is, of course, the gigantic hermaphrodite woman, whatever you want to call her. And probably one of the ugliest people on the planet. And it makes sense for Steve to have his team name that because he has one of the ugliest teams I've ever seen. Way overprojected. Steve is way overprojected. Josh Allen has nobody to throw to. Steve will say, well, Dalton Kincaid, but Dalton Kincaid is not that good. He splits snaps at tight end. So, anybody else rostering a tight end that's splitting snaps with somebody else that gets the red zone work? Anyone? No? Okay, didn't think so. Tyreek Hill's going to have a big game against the Jags, of course, because it's Tyreek Hill. But other than that, I look at Malik Neighbors and Michael Pittman Jr. with Anthony. What are you doing with Pittman Jr. and JT on the same team? That's kind of silly. Not exactly a high-powered offense either. So, and, a lot of their touchdowns are going to come from Richardson running it in. Don't love that. He's starting a punt returner as his RB2. Ramondre Stevenson isn't even ownable. He's total garbage. And then I look at Paul's team, Pat Mahomes. In the regular season, he tends to eat against the Ravens. He struggled against them in the playoffs last year. Referees came in and bailed them out like they do because it's the Chiefs. But I expect Mahomes to be ready to rock and roll tonight and have a solid showing. I got to go bold prediction here, and that is going to be that Tony Pollard finishes with less than 40 yards against the Bears' number 1 ranked run defense. Pollard absolutely not playable this week. And if I were you, Paul, I would get Christian Watson into my lineup instead. Christian Watson, when healthy and on the field, puts up big numbers, and he's got A great matchup against the shitty Eagles secondary. But either way, Paul comes in with the upset week 1, knocks off Steve, beats him easily in just a trouncing. And there you go. There you have it, guys. There's your week 1 matchup previews. And I will see you on Tuesday for the recap. Good luck to everybody but Jason this weekend. And, hope we all have a good time.